Good evening. Welcome along to Grow. It's good to have you here. Thank you for braving the weather to be with us. This is a panel talk. Going to be more likely a bit of a podcast, I think, at this rate. And it's basically part of Black History Month, an extension, because obviously we're into November now. And it's a project that's undertaken annually by Hackney Borough Council, and obviously venues like Grow who participate and see it as something important. Though it's just 1 month of celebration, of course, there are things going on behind the scenes all year round. So I want to say, firstly, thank you to Grow for inviting me or encouraging me to facilitate and host this evening, part of Black History Month. The theme of the topic is basically changing the narrative or reclaiming narratives. So when I was first asked or invited to take part in this, I thought, well, what does reclaiming the narrative mean to me? It might mean something different to our two guests who I'm going to introduce shortly. But for me, I thought it's about redressing the negative misconceptions and a lot of whitewashing that's taken place over decades, even centuries, if we go back far enough, of the contribution of the Black diaspora in the United Kingdom. Obviously, this is a global thing, but I can only speak from the perspective of having been born and bred here in London. I'm a Londoner. I'm a South London girl, actually. Yes, thank you. Raising your hand there in the background. So, to me, it's about redressing the misconceptions and a lot of false narratives that have been put out there repeatedly through the press, through media of television and film, and things like that. Of course, in a panel talk, we're not going to be able to put the world to rights, as it were, in one evening. But I do think it's also good that we talk about these things, because if we don't talk, if we continue to murmur and complain about certain things under our breath, and within the Black diaspora, sometimes people just feel so frustrated, that's all they can do. But there are some people who perhaps are more better placed to speak up and actually effect change in the long term that can not just bless the Black diaspora, but everybody that makes up the United Kingdom. There's so many different minorities, but I feel that each one teach one, then we can all learn, we can all be blessed, we can all be uplifted, motivated, and move forward and do things together. Even though there will always be underpinnings of racism and other negative things that happen within any multiracial country, I think generally the premise is moving forward is reclaiming the narrative, how we can spin some things and just hopefully take small steps, whether in small groups or as single individuals or a whole body of people, to make and effect change within a nation, because for too long things have been in a negative light. And so having a talk like this where we come together and, brainstorm or put forward ideas, and we want you, the members of the public in the audience, you can interact by asking questions later on, or maybe you even have an amazing suggestion that we can take on board as individuals, or do something with it. So welcome to In Conversation with me, your host, Marcia, Carr, and my two invited guests. So I want to share a little bit about the two invited guests. To my right, in the middle, we have Twiggles. She's a London photographer. And to the right of her, we have one of the most amazing women in sound system culture in the United Kingdom. And her name is Lady Banton. That's what she goes by. So I thought it'd be good to introduce you and tell you a little bit about the ladies, and then I'm going to perhaps hand it over to them. So Lady Banton, as I've just mentioned to you, she's been immersed in sound system culture since 1985, but beyond that, she's been a DJ doing her thing. She was firstly a member of the 80s Ladies, and so she's witnessed many a man erecting boxes and doing the things that they do when setting up for parties and events and things like that. And I understand that people like Ranking Miss P and DJ Elaine kind of inspired her and influenced her to prompt her even more to get into DJing, but also moving over to sound system culture. So people that know of her today or have come across her in the last maybe 10, 15 years know her as Lady Banton, who's host of Seduction City Sound System. And she's taken part in Carnival, the Notting Hill Carnival, since 1994, and done a host of other things. But I don't want to completely speak for you and say everything, but introduce yourself to the audience and tell us about one of your momentous achievements to this point so far.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Lady Banton. I'm one of a handful of female sound systems, not only in the country, within the world. I'd say there was about maybe 15 or 20 sound systems in England. And globally, I'd say there is about maybe 20. So I've been immersed in music since childhood. My parents are from the Caribbean, and I started my sound system journey in 1985 through the days of the youth club, and when they had all-female spaces. And that's when I first set up my first sound system with the assistance of the workers at the time. I then played parties and that kind of thing. But in 1994, I was sitting in central Brixton and had this yearning to want to play in the Notting Hill Carnival. So I just rang them up, and that was my entry into Carnival. At the time, the chief executive of the Carnival committee was a woman, and I think that kind of helped me along, really. So this year has been my 30th year. I didn't ever believe that I would be performing in the Notting Hill Carnival as still the only female sound system within the carnival. So I'm one of 36 of sound systems. I think this year has been the most notable for me. There's so many things that have happened this year. It's just a landmark year. I'm not afraid to say that in the 30th year that I played at Carnival, I became 60 this year. And I played at Glastonbury this year as the only female sound system that's ever played in Glastonbury. So that was a great achievement for me. I hadn't even been to Glastonbury ever. Do you know what I mean? So that was just absolutely amazing. And I've started to do festivals, so we played at festivals this year. I can't even remember which one. But Glastonbury was the one that stood out most of all, and to have the younger generation dancing, and we played vinyl, and that was amazing. We did a vinyl set for 90 minutes, playing to young people. It was just amazing. And then I did an advert with a young international DJ who's been following me and tracking me for years. and that was Dr. Martin. So, yeah.
So 2 great achievements, one a milestone in your 60th year, and the advert, which I want to talk to you about that in a little while. So if we could just pause and hold that thought. Our second guest is a lady who goes by the name of Twiggles, as I mentioned. And she's been a friend of mine for a few years now. It's an interesting story how we kind of met, actually. And hopefully she might be able to enlighten you on that a little later. So what I know about Twiggles is for the last 7 years or so, she's been traveling all over the place, from capturing on film lives of artists, DJs, models, celebrities, as well as being commissioned by corporate brands to work for them and other subjects. And she has a particular way of how she exercises use of light in her work, which she apparently describes as friend photography. And she also works in the alternative scene of nightclub culture, doing interesting things with some of the artists in that field. I thought it'd be good to have Twiggles here because we had a conversation before tonight, and you felt that you maybe wouldn't be able to have much to say because of your journey. But before I get into the questions, tell the audience a bit about some of your journey and your work, your life experience through the world of photography.
Hi, I'm Twiggles, and I started off, I guess, just partying in Mayfair generally for about 5 years, enjoying myself, enjoying music. And I was working in corporate B2B, B2C video, which is very dry, basically, financial video. And I enjoyed taking photos just on my iPhone in clubs. Actually, I had a Samsung and everyone used to make fun of me. But then they were like, get an iPhone. Anyway, so then got an iPhone, and my friends went and recommended me to the GM of Maddox nightclub and said, Sally's really good at taking photos. Why don't you give her a job doing photography? So then Twiggles became a thing, and I got a proper camera, and the first picture I took, Black Panther had just come out, and it was Michael B. Jordan. I took a photo of him.
Wow.
Yeah, and I kind of messed it up, but it's quite a cool picture. He's out of focus, but his friend, who's my mate, is in focus, but it looks like he wants to be in the picture, like he's trying to be in it, so it's quite a fun picture anyway, and just started from there, basically, and then met a few people along the way and got recommended a lot, and it was generally nightclubs, but then I'd meet lots of young models in clubs, and to practice photography, I'd ask them to do test shoots with me. So I'd meet these girls or guys like during the week and start doing photos, and I quit my job in finance. And then I came back and so I went to India, came back and then started doing lots of photography as a full-time job. With some money that I'd saved, I went full-time. And it just kind of started from there, really.
So how did the wildlife tag come about?
Well, I don't really take pictures of people being particularly wild, but it's very it's more that it's very candid. I know I'm discreet. I know when to put my camera away or not to even have it on me when things are, kicking off, so to speak. But it's just really, it's more about friend photography. That's what I call it, because it should always look like your friend took it. It shouldn't look so contrived and poised and, pre-planned. So that was always my niche and my angle, was to make photos look like your friend took it. I just think it makes everything just seem a bit more light-hearted and engaging.
Yeah, that's a good tip. I'm going to take that on board for myself, I think. So you do the wildlife work, and you've had 2 exhibitions, one in 2022 and one in 2023?
Yes. That is true.
So what I want to get on to the issue of me as a punter and as a clubber. In 40 years of going out clubbing, you and one other person as black female photographers I'm not lying, are the only two people that I've ever met. So I did a little bit of online research, and I found the directory for the UK black female photographers. They've got a few thousand followers, but literally in the whole of the United Kingdom, it seems like there are only about 50 black female photographers. And maybe you're not even part of that directory, but I've met two. In 40 years of clubbing, just two. And I pick up and observe things like that because I always see lots of guys doing photography work at festivals and things like that. And this is why I wanted to have you here, because my question might seem a bit controversial, but I just wondered, is it about gatekeeping, why there are a lack of female photographers anyway, but particularly black female photographers? Is it even an issue of colorism, perhaps? Because as a DJ, I've experienced the issue of colorism where somebody who's lighter skinned than me is selected and put on the bill, or even on a higher position on the bill, but yet they've only been DJing a few months or a year or so, but yet it supposedly ticks all the boxes for maybe that company's funding, perhaps, or sponsorship. And those things really, sometimes, initially it used to upset me, but now I just sort of like brush it off now. But it's still there. I just wondered if in your field or your world, do you come across issues, or have you, or maybe not, because you did mention that your experience might not be, and I wouldn't expect it to be the same as mine or Lady Banton's, of course, or any other black person. So speak from your perspective. How have you found the world of photography? Has it been plain sailing all the way?
I think the way I started was by being a bit of a clubber anyway, and being on the dance floor. And I met a lot of people just from that world. You know, Shane is a friend of mine, a DJ, and he's always been a great supporter of me. He's also a black man, and I just love music, and that's just, I think that just transcended everything for me. And so when I then became a photographer, I actually already knew quite a lot of people from being there when the lights come on, you know? Actually, sometimes when the bins were being taken out. But anyway.
You don't want to see me when the lights come on.
So, you know, I just was there because I loved the environment. I'm very social, you know. Didn't really go to after parties, so I wasn't really kind of associated with the other side of partying. It was just about the love and the music on the dance floor. So I got recommended a lot and ended up with some owners of clubs taking me on board to do photography, and it just kind of snowballs from there, because then someone will have a private party or they'll be doing a Halloween event. From my perspective, I don't think anyone ever really considered colour or my gender even as a thing. It was just, you know, Sally's good, or Twiggy's good, or Twiggles is good, and it just kind of happened from there. And then you're only as good as your last job as well. So it's also about performance, you know, being consistently good, being timely, being on time, delivering on time, not dropping the ball on these things, you know. So
okay, that's interesting that you make that point, but because there are so few that I've come across, as I said, I've met two in 40 years plus, literally photographers, because I see a lot of men. And I have seen a few women, but definitely not many black women in lots of different spaces. I just wondered, so you're saying that it hasn't been an issue for you, not even maybe colorism. So it's dependent on your work and not dropping the ball. But because we haven't got many people in those spaces, do you feel Do you, or have you ever thought that might have been pressure on you, that if you were slack or dropped the ball in any way, that if you're gone, then where are the others? Or maybe from your perspective, it's not really occurred to you?
I don't know. I feel like I've always been a bit of a perfectionist. I mean, before I started off working doing photography, I'd been a manager since, about 2008, working in film, TV, and doing productions as well. And this is all stuff where I'm doing call sheets or booking equipment. People need to be there on time. I'm reprimanding people, all of that, where are you? You're late. All this stuff. So
I heard that you were the youngest employee for Kodak in the United Kingdom, working as a photo lab manager.
Yeah, that was when I was 18.
Wow.
So I was already kind of into running things from an early age and photography, but then I went off into a different route. But then, those skills of management and self-management. So when you say about, was I worried about dropping the ball? No, I mean, maybe I put a lot of pressure on myself sometimes. I'd get home from work sometimes at 5 a.m. and I'd sit up until 7 a.m. maybe making a Halloween video. I remember that in my first year, 2018, because they said they wanted to get it out the next day. And so I just stayed up and I edited it. I went to bed about 9-ish, made sure they downloaded it. Yeah, but you don't, you've got to break some eggs to make a cake. Like, you can't just expect things to fall in your lap. And I think that's with any job, any vocation that you're dedicated to, you put the work in. So if people do drop the ball, then that's their problem and that's their business. Maybe they're not cut out for it, or the standards that they hold aren't going to maintain them.
Okay, so when you've been on some jobs, have you seen others, especially guys?
Why do you ask me that, honestly?
Well, because your standard of excellence clearly doesn't meet some other individuals, and
I think people have different levels of being drunk, for example, and I've seen people like, I can't believe they're working, because they're tipsy or whatever. But I've had my moments where I've thought, I mustn't do that again.
Okay. Was that coming from the person that hired you for the job, or?
Well, she didn't actually pay me, but we went to Creamfields together when I first started, and I did enjoy myself. And I showed her a picture, and she's like, "Twigs, they're all out of focus." I was like, "What?"
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they weren't that badly out of focus, but obviously she could see better than I could. And no one ever had to speak to me again about any pictures being out of focus like that. I learned my lesson. I also sobered up in that moment that she said that.
Okay, so, well, that's quite an interesting story. So you haven't really experienced or had any obstacles major in your field of work, really, as a woman or as a woman of colour, really?
No, but physically I think that's where the challenge is. That's where the difference is personally between, from my experience of booking me maybe to do a festival and booking a man to do a festival. It's a very physical job. One thing I don't do and probably won't do is go into the middle of a big crowd with my camera and try and take a shot. So I generally don't volunteer for those jobs, and I don't do those jobs because I don't think I could do them as well as perhaps a taller chap that can lift more weight, a heavier lens. All of that, I mean, there's some physical limits, unfortunately. I mean, I do go to CrossFit and lift as much weight, plug in CrossFit. I do lift as much weight as I want to and can, but I feel like I just don't, it's just not for me. I'm a bit more of a party environment person, and that, again, alludes to the friendship side of the photography, whereas some of these festival things, they're bit less personal, aren't they? They're the big wow photos of a stage, mid-crowd. It's about the lighting, etc. Whereas I'm much more about people.
But what's held you back from going for those jobs, apart from the physicality of lifting?
Well, I just don't like to fail, so I'm not going to put
Right.
myself forward for something where I can't get a good shot.
Not many women. Again, I don't see many black female photographers in clubs, just generally. I just don't. I know one girl, and she does a lot of hip-hop work, and some of her works have been commissioned, and she's told me about some of the drama just to get her work published. How did you get to shoot Kerry Chandler, or what's the story behind that?
So I was at Printworks, and a friend of mine got me in there to the backstage area, which was quite huge. And I always used to take my business cards with me everywhere. And these business cards, I used to work at Raffles, and I've seen the lights come on and my business card would be like trampled in the corner on the dance floor. But anyway, I still carried them with me, hoping that one day I'd, make it big. So anyway, Kerry Chandler was DJing there, and as he came off stage from playing his set, I'd been listening avidly to his set, and he played, I don't know if you remember Bizarre Inc. Playing with Knives, 90s house tune, which I absolutely loved. And he played the keys to that during one of his DJ sets. And he came off stage, and I was like, everyone was like congratulating him, and Kerry. And I was like, Kerry, did I hear you playing with Knives during your set? And he was like, wow. That's my Kerry Chandler voice. Sorry, Kerry. He's like, you heard that? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, and then I shoved my business card, which I'd had kind of tucked up my sleeve, into his hand and went, hi, I'm Twiggles, I'm a photographer. And he's like, Twiggles? And so he was like, I want to hear more from you. So anyway...
You've got his mannerism down to a T, which is funny.
Yeah. He gave me his email address, and he was like, no, let me give you my phone number. So anyway, he gave me his phone number. His voice isn't that squeaky, that's me. But so he gave me his phone number, and we started chatting about music. And he was like, hey, I'm going to be at 51st State soon. How about you come and shoot that? And I was like, this is what I needed. You know what I mean? He's such a nice guy, and he really supports other artists and other people's vision. So anyway, I went to 51st State, and that's how I met Dennis Ferrer and many other people, and it was all because Kerry gave me that helping hand.
It's called a bring-in.
It's called?
A bring-in.
A bring-in?
A bring-in, yes. And sometimes I think we need more of that camaraderie amongst women in the business just generally. But can you kind of relate to that at all, Lady Banton, a bad experience of, trying to get booked for an event, and maybe a brother or sister you thought was going to help you, or they made promises and then it fell apart?
I think the premise that I come from is that no one's going to give me anything. Quite early on, I realized that I was going to be on my own. So I learned very early that most of what I achieve or where I wanted to go I had to do it myself. So, initially you would try and write to or ask people questions, but it went nowhere. So, I just spent my time just trying to maneuver myself through the industry in the best way. And there wasn't a network or a big network. It was kind of like a very small club of male DJs and promoters that really, if you weren't part of that clique, it wasn't going to happen.
So you didn't really get a bring-in. You just saw that there was a niche pocket that you could fill, or was it always in the back of your mind that you want to build? Because you've built your own sound system, haven't you? You've had people carry them for you, but I understand that you kind of built that operation set up yourself.
Yeah, with the help of some very interested sound men from the industry because they really support what I'm trying to achieve as a female sound
Is
system.
that how they ushered you in to it? Because obviously it is very male dominated, into that environment was that your bringing?
In terms of the initial entry into sound system was through that youth work entry.
Right.
So, and then, your friends would book you for parties with the small set that I had. And then in terms of trying to navigate myself during the mid-'80s and the 90s, it was kind of like really, really difficult. I don't want to ask anyone for anything. So for the thing
But you had a partner when you were part of Melotone when you started out, yeah?
Yeah.
So was she pulling her weight, or how did that transpire?
Yeah, so we started together in about 1989. And it was just hard for both of us as younger women. We were in our 20s then, and trying to navigate a scene that was solely men. London was a very different landscape then, so we were North Londoners. And, there wasn't, I can't think of many other, there was a handful and we all knew each other. So in terms of going to a promoter, yes, we got booked by several promoters who never paid us. They gave you the impression that they were going to give you a bring-in by putting you on the bill, but you never got, and we never got paid. And it was always a disappointment. So it got to a point where you just thought, I'm just going to do this myself any way I can. So you try and create your own promotion without actually knowing how to, to promote a dance or anything like that, or a club. Club owners didn't really take you that seriously, and the ones that did, they'd give you the one chance, and it just never happened again because, again, it's like this spiral thing,
I did always feel that I had to, even though people said, oh, you're really good at what you do, Marcia, but I did always at the back of my mind feel that there was this pressure that I had to play like my life depended on it, really, because otherwise those opportunities were just going to just disappear. And I think definitely. That was because, as a woman, it wasn't a colour issue, because most of the members of the sound that time were happened to be black. But as a woman, I've always felt like there was this pressure. So just going back to you, when you said you mucked up the photos for the
only
person
once.
Only once. But how did it make you feel, even though you said you still couldn't see what she was talking about with the work?
No, I could see what it was. It sobered me up immediately when she said that. That's what I mean. It was like a sharp snap out of it, where I was like, wow, we've come all the way up here to Liverpool, and I can't mess up. So I snapped out of it, but I was having a great time until then.
And did you get paid?
No, she covered my expenses. But I mean,
just your expenses now.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, it's difficult when you're starting off, and also some of the DJs I was working with were also starting off, so they didn't have budget, or they were doing it to get onto the billing. They weren't being paid as well. So
I keep hearing about this disparity of payment. You mentioned, Lady Banton, that you played at Glastonbury. We don't want to know what goes on behind closed doors, but I've heard lots of horror stories from people about, unless you're an A-list Hollywood celebrity, you're not getting paid, so people just do it for the honour. But moving forward, we've got issues with women not being celebrated enough, black women not featuring enough on bills. Isn't payment part of the issue as well? And how do we change the disparities about that?
For me, so now, I've stepped away. I felt that it was getting to the point where I'd have to have a mediator between the promoter and myself.
An agent or a booker?
Yeah, more or less an agent. And I had to actually persuade her to come on board. And she was saying, oh, I don't know. And I was saying, I need you. You know, you're going to be our advocate, because I can't concentrate on all of the logistics of a sound system and then have to be backward and forward with the promoter. So anyway, that's helped, because you kind of like get into this kind of like behavior. Oh, well, that's all they're going to pay, and, you know. But now it's got to the point, we were toing and froing this afternoon. I was, you know, with a couple of quid for an event that I'm going to be doing in a couple of, next month. And she's the hard one now. No, this is what you're worth. And I've had some really, you know, she's given me some really hard talking. This is what you're worth, and if they don't want it, then you're not doing it. And I'm thinking, but I really want to do this. And she's saying, no, this is what you're worth. You cannot work for that kind of money.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I was going to bring that up. I think part of the black narrative, or maybe somehow subconsciously we've been fed this along the way, that we're not worth anything. You know, I remember my mum mentioning to me many years ago about the state of British advertising, how we never saw, even with a simple advert on television, I'm going to talk about the Dr. Martens thing in a minute, how black faces weren't seen on television, they weren't represented in products that we are consumers of, which I find very weird, that this has been going on for decades, maybe as long as advertising has been in existence on television. There's this issue about we're not worth anything, and this is part of this ongoing conversation, I think, about changing the narratives, believing that we are worth whatever it is the product that we're selling or helping in or distributing. We are worth something, and as women, black and white, or whatever background you're from, they tend to get paid less anyway. How do we push against that? How do we change that narrative? And you mentioned one thing, you have a go-between, you have an agent. I recently have had to get a manager because I've been DJing 42 years and people were calling me and saying, oh, Marcia, yes, you've got a database of contacts, you can invite this person, that person. Well, no, you bring them. I used to jazz dance as well. And then they say, oh, well, you know, we'll just pay you a meal or, you know, your cab fare. But I've got 42 years worth of experience of DJing. It's not acceptable anymore. And for many years, even some friends are like, yeah, because it's my friend. But then I got to a point I thought, well, are you a charity? I'd question. You're not a charity? Well, you need to pay me. And I'd almost have to sound gangsterish. Pay me my money. I'm being flippant, but that's the tone that I've had to take, because I am worth something. And yes, I'm a woman, but, you know, I do know how to turn the kit on. Somebody asked me one time, a sound engineer, would you believe, do I know how to turn the kit on? And it's fighting against all of these things. Do you get that in your world? Payment.
Yeah.
Do you have to have a go-between? What's it been like for you?
I actually got asked in Latin if I'd work for free the other day.
And it wasn't a charity event, was it?
No.
So non-gratis, yeah?
It said pro bono.
Pro bono, sorry, yeah.
I was like, oh, no. I said, oh, you have to find someone else, dear.
I was going to ask you, how did you deal with that?
No, I mean, to be honest, it happens a lot with photography because, you know, the same old thing, oh, we're on a thin, you know, profit margins or whatever. They've got other people to pay and whatever, and you're kind of like way down the list. Even venues, obviously, sometimes they've got to pay their drinks supplier before they pay regular, you know, staff. So anyway, yeah, it's a bit of a difficult one. I've had someone didn't pay me for a year. Yeah, they owed me for a year.
It's not fun having to keep on persistently
Well, I just
chase
feel like
them.
some angry ex-girlfriend. It's so annoying, like, you know, trying to hunt them down and keep asking for what is mine for work that they already have with them. But at the same time, I think it's all, sadly, it's part of the learning curve, you know. It's about deposits. It's about paying in full before I send you anything, because, you know, you don't go into Sainsbury's, eat the bananas and then ask to pay them in a few weeks. So this is part of it, and you have to learn the hard way, which is sometimes, you know, the experience I had was the person that didn't pay me for a year, etc. So now I get deposits, also price points, like how do I price myself, what are other people charging? To be honest, I've never taken it on board what other people are charging. I try and be reasonable, and that's all I can do.
And what do you do? You've got an agent now, and so is everything moving forward and on an even keel for you now?
I think for me, it's because I've been around for so long and I've been doing it freestyle, and now I have to remember that she's there. So I'll run off and someone calls me because they come to you direct.
Oh, because you've been hands-on all this time, managing, doing
Yeah.
the admin, everything yourself, right?
Yeah,
Right.
so they'll come in and say, yeah, we want to talk to you. And I think, hold on a minute, I've got an agent for this, isn't it? And then I have to kind of like backtrack and say, actually, I've got an agent, you've got to speak to her. And I can feel like there's this sigh. Oh, God, it's one of them. But it really, because the assignments are getting, I'd say, a bit more interesting. You know, and you just think to yourself, for the Dr. Martin thing, she wasn't about. We just started to work together, and I kind of, you know, as per usual, I forgot, and I should have drawn her in because she was around, but I didn't draw her in quick enough. So signed a contract, and she looked at it, and she just said, "You could have got a damn sight more than that. They needed you."
She felt that
I should have got a lot more money
Right.
for the assignment because they needed me.
You'd already signed it.
Oh, I'd already got in bed with them, you know.
Well, you didn't have to quite say it like that, but anyway.
You know. Yeah, and this is something that I'm beginning to learn. Even today, as I said, this couple of quid, and she was saying, "No, you've got to do this." You know, so it's just, you know, another part of the journey.
So you teamed up with George.
Yes.
I'm not sure how you got the recommendation, but she's 30 years younger than you, isn't she, George?
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that was a wonderful experience for you.
I've known George for... She interviewed me many, many years ago.
Okay.
I can't even remember the publication she was working on. And we've worked on and off for quite some time. You know, she'll come and interview me. And I like to engage younger women in the industry. So
Yes.
to have them... my aim was always to have women on my stage.
Yes.
And that transition, excuse me, that transition only happened this year, that we had an all-female DJ set at Carnival. It's always been my dream to just have all the men in the background as ancillary staff. And
That's amazing. But going back to the advert, I wanted to put something to you. You may have thought of it or maybe not. Do you think that having accepted all of that, despite that they maybe underpaid you for the feature, do you think going forward that's a good way to use that platform of advertising to gain the attention of the nation so that they see representation, you as a seasoned elder and as a black woman and just the fact that George also was in that.
It
to
was
recruit, or to just, do you see it as a positive thing going forward, so that people can see us in these kind of spaces, advertising products?
It was an amazing opportunity. It's for, you know what I thought about? I thought to myself, my parents came from a rural community in Jamaica. And I don't know if when they came here that they would have foreseen that their most difficult child, because I was the difficult one, would have ended up globally, because that was a global advert, and, you know, be in this space and would have achieved that particular assignment, because, as I said, it was a global assignment, and it represented, for George and myself, it's like I kind of like arrived. Do you know what I mean? DMs represented something very different in the 80s, and now I had these shoes on. It's like they reclaimed their brand. So there was a lot of, I think there was a lot of symbolism in there. But for me, the amount of people that saw that ad and said, hold on a minute, was that you? How did you do that? And the fact...
Did anyone rear the ugly head of the painful history of Dr. Martens and what their products were used for?
It was me that, you know, everyone that said, and I said, do you remember Dr. Martin? Everyone remembered what Dr. Martin represented at the time.
Particularly in the 80s, late...
Yeah, it was late 70s, early 80s.
Race rights in Britain.
Yeah.
You know, certain groups.
So the people that I invited on the night, they were kind of like a bit nervous. And it was interesting because my daughter didn't have that experience. So they were just excited to get the shoes.
And
you know?
Maybe there was no reason in your household to have broached it for whatever reason.
We broached it because it's part of the history of England. So there are things that I share with her. And I said, these mean so much, so many different things. And it's great that, you know, they now represent something else.
When I saw the advert, it inspired me on a lot of different levels for many reasons. One, because of the age difference. I love that you're still youthful at heart and that you were in the ad. And I remembered what Dr. Martens symbolized back in the 80s. But I thought, good on you for, you know, like reclaiming it back and putting your stamp on it through the sound system culture and George dancing and DJing at the same time. And you just thought, well, we don't care what they did back then, but we're wearing the shoes.
We've got it now.
We are wearing the shoes now.
We've got it now. It was, for me, it you know what it also represented? Because, you know, like, as an older woman, it's like you're washed up, you lot got to go and sit down now. And for me, it represented that we still have life in us. And it's for us to say when we sit down, you know?
That's a very good point.
Yeah, so it was great to be, it was an all-female crew. Oh, there was one honorary photographer, and I'm sure they could have found. Yeah, they could have found you, because everyone, I just walked into this room and it was just, everybody was a woman, apart from this one guy, he was the photographer. And I kept looking at him like, what are you doing here? What are you doing here?
Not very nice.
No, I was still quite civil to him. I was still, you know...
They should have gone on your database that you... Honestly.
But yeah, he was the only guy there. But everyone else, it was just a fantastic... It was just an amazing day. And me as an elder, I wish they'd started the B2B a bit earlier, because by 7 o'clock I was absolute.
You don't go around broadcasting that bit, are you? Because
gosh,
you're saying that, you know, you're glad to have been in the space, and you're you're relevant. That's the word that I hear thrown about as well. Well, as an older DJ, you know, are you relevant? Can you engage with younger audiences? And I'm like, excuse me?
I feel really uncomfortable with that because I was accused of being not relevant.
Irrelevant, yes.
Yeah, that was at Carnival. I was saying, well, why can't I go on the international trail? And the guy said to me, you're not really relevant. Anyway, I just walked off and I thought I will deal with you. And I dealt with him last year.
Yes, with an all-female lineup, and that's you're sticking two fingers up at him without even having to say it.
I did it to all of them because it was now time to now have that space. It was always going to be Telford Road, Jamaica Corner was always going to be a female space. So even some of the existing women in the space are, boy, are you sure you can do this? Oh gosh, how are we going to manage? I said, the guys are still there. They're just not.
At the forefront.
They're not at the forefront. This is our set. We can control it. You know, the whole, you know, the amps. All they had to do was lift because a lot of my boxes still haven't got the wheels on yet.
Right.
So it's a set that's still in progress, but we got it there. So they still have to lift. I can't lift some of them. I'll tell you that point blank.
But you are the project manager. You direct. You lead, and you know something like that needs to be applauded and celebrated because behind the scenes you're getting this pushback from people who are supposed to be your peers. Saying negative things like that in your head. So I applaud you for standing and being confident. And that is one way of, you know, you're kind of reclaiming the narrative, as it were, because it's this thing, oh, women are all weak, feeble and weak. We can't do this and we can't do that.
No.
You shut him up.
No. There's been quite a few challenges. And I don't think that anybody thought that I would have achieved what I achieved this year at Carnival. The set has been produced by myself. I know exactly what kind of sound that I want, how I wanted it to sound. It was half done. We literally didn't even get to do much of a sound check. But, you know, we got it going. And we had younger DJs on the Monday, which was another thing because it's about leaving a legacy.
Yes.
Many young female DJs have never played on a sound system. And to be able to give those younger DJs a chance to play on a sound system, for me, I think that I'm beginning to do the work that I set out to do.
Yeah, well done. And I'd clap two hands, but, you know, I've got two hands to clap. Well done to you. In your field with the photography, you tend to work solo a lot of the time, don't you? Yes. You've not got any young assistants or a toy boy hanging in the background?
No, assistants never work out for me. That sounds fun. No, I had an assistant at 51st State, that first gig with Kerry, and she just disappeared. I don't know what happened to her. Didn't see her for 4 hours.
Right. So,
that's all
that's not very professional, and that could have reflected very badly on you.
The thing is, I always wear my kit on me, so she didn't walk off with my lenses, which was the main thing, basically. But yeah, whenever I've had an assistant, they've kind of danced off into the party. With their triple A.
Stop it. Yes, that's all they wanted you for, clearly.
Well, yeah.
So do you find people take advantage of you when you're doing bigger projects? How do you navigate when you're in that environment? Because you are a woman and then somebody might be coming up to you thinking you're the assistant and looking for a male body in the background to step forward. No? Have you ever encountered that?
No, I haven't, because I deliberately set out to work for DJs, not to work in general for venues when I first started. So I was rolling with Kerry that first time, then I'd work with Dennis, yes, right. And then even the Creamfields thing, I was with that DJ. So I don't generally work for, back then I didn't work for the actual event, because I only wanted to do like 2 hours. That was my thing. I didn't want to be working all day. It's very physical work, and not to dismiss females in that workspace, but it's very physical work, and I don't want to end up. At one point, I had a very bad shoulder, and I was thinking I'd have to quit. And it's the same. Why would you put your back out to move a sound system? You know, it's like just to prove a point. Like, sometimes you have to know your physical limits. In my personal experience, so I didn't want to injure myself. So I worked with DJs so that I'd only do like 1 or 2 hours, and also it's quite bougie and exciting, isn't it? Just rocking up with them. What?
Now she's getting to the crux of the matter, really, what her agenda is all about.
So, so I haven't, challenges have been mostly to do with physical constraints.
Okay, so going forward, is there expansion envisaged for Twiggles, the company? Because you've got all this background experience working for Kodak, and you were in finance before, and all these skill sets,
yes.
That you've experienced, that you've amassed, have put you in a good position. But what would you do with that going forward in the space that you work?
I am not planning to expand or to take on other photographers. I think for me, I've had a long think about it, and Twiggles is Twiggles. I've had people say to me, "It is you coming, isn't it?" that I've booked, thinking, I'll send another person instead of me. And no, if you book me, you book me. And I think I'll just keep it small and manageable. Yes, I may not become a millionaire, but I'm very happy with my lot and my creative viewpoint and the signature that I have on my work.
So it was just the time.
Oh, it's the alarm. Okay, I was just saying it wasn't cool.
I'm on time.
I think that's it for me, really. It's just me in my own lane doing what I do, and there's no expansion. There's one thing that's come up this year which is quite interesting. I've been asked more and more to do photoshopping and airbrushing and things like that, and that is beyond my skill set.
But you say it's beyond your skill set, but okay, I was on the film set once, and the makeup artist really didn't know what she was doing. She really didn't know how to deal with my skin tone. So on some jobs, when you have to deal with different skin tones and colours, do you just ignore everything and just hand the photos over? Or do you think because you have a dual heritage background, you might observe and see things in work that maybe somebody else wouldn't necessarily, if they're not trained to? How do you deal with things like that?
It depends.
Especially with photoshopping and airbrushing. Are you asked to doctor things?
Well, I think most people that, in general, if people are having portrait photography these days where they've got a dedicated photo shoot going on in the studio, they would like some tweaking done, which, it could just be like, darkened under the eyes or whatever, they just want that lightened a bit or whatever. Mm. So I basically outsource.
Okay.
Because I know what my limits are, and I don't want these pictures to look bad if me doing a hack job on it. So I outsource that stuff now. In terms of editing photos, I think in general, warm photos do well, if that makes sense. So when you go on Instagram, the tones tend to be warmer rather than towards blue daylight colours. So sometimes I find if you push warm colours, darker skin tones can take on a slight orange tone. If you put too much contrast and stuff, you can bring out a slight orange. So then when I'm editing maybe with a scenario like that, I might just minus orange a little bit, just so that anyone that's darker skinned in the picture doesn't have this kind of orange look to them.
So
that's it.
So fortunately, you've not ever been pressurized or asked to manipulate pictures in such a way that somebody might be 10 shades lighter than they actually
Oh, no,
are.
never. But what I am mindful of is not, like, one size doesn't always fit all. And so that's something that I will go through I edit every single picture. I might apply like a general filter to something, and then I go through each picture, because some pictures, the shadows may need to come up, etc. And then some pictures, as I was saying, might lean towards a bit too much orange on some skin tones, so then I'll minus that. But, you know, that's it really. I haven't been asked to doctor anything.
Oh, that's good, because sometimes you hear, you know, stories out there, or sometimes... I saw a picture of Beyonce, just mentioning her, because when I saw the photograph at first, I actually thought it was a white lady, and I just thought, is she taking the bleaching tablets or something like that now? Or was the photographer or whoever published the photo asked to make her look, because you're quite light skinned, I'd say you're her shade, but she looked, I thought it was Dolly Parton or somebody in the photo. That's how light it was. And then it said, no, when I looked, I thought, oh my gosh, it is her.
I've seen I've had to double take a couple of times with her.
Right.
Pictures.
I think
in 2025, going forward, we can't still be doing this nonsense, surely.
I don't know. I
we
think
need
you'd have
to be
to
ourselves, no?
You'd have to meet Beyonce in person to know what skin tone she is. That's how I feel about the amount of variation in her skin tone. Okay. I can't tell. I don't know myself if she's my shade, your shade.
No, I'm just using an example. I didn't expect you to know.
But what I mean is, I honestly think there's so much variation in the editing process of that person in particular that unless you've met her, you probably wouldn't know.
But generally in life, creatives that are actors, singers, whatever, you know, you've heard the stories in the 70s and 80s that large singers were replaced with slim models for, you know, covers of albums and books and things like that. Fortunately, you've not ever been asked to do that, apart from remove a zit maybe, or a little couple dark lines. But I think that it's important that, you know that statement, what's it called? Speak your truth. So going forward, we should be allowed to be ourselves, no? In your line of work, you shouldn't have to be entertaining or outsourcing, really.
Well, I think the outsourcing's down to the person who's paying. You know, if they want to be airbrushed or, you know, fine-tuned in that way, that's up to the individual. Me personally, I think it is better to represent yourself as yourself in images as much as possible. Obviously, you know, if I had a spot on my face, I'd love someone to zap that out in a party photo. For God's sake, please do it, because, you know, I want to look my best. This picture's forever on the internet. You can still find that in a Google archive somewhere.
Yes, called the internet now is a bit
wanting, but also in the same breath, at the same time, if someone doesn't want their picture taken, or they want me to delete their picture from a party scene, I've got no issue with that as well. You know, people do work with a photographer and a videographer, and you have to have a faith and trust in that person, not to put you out on the internet looking terrible. I mean, even I've had a photo. I went to an event and I got a bit tipsy. I wasn't working, and my chest was almost out. I didn't realise, you know, the photographer snapped away, and then I went on this Google Drive a few days later, and there was this picture with my breast almost out. Took 5 hours to get that picture removed from a Google Drive that everyone at that event could access. And I was so angry, and I just thought, has this person not got eyes? Like, would you want a picture of yourself like that, or your sister, or someone you know like that online? And he just brainless.
Or was it an issue of he wanted to exploit something?
No, I just think some people just spill their guts from their camera, and I think you have to go through it and think, would I want that picture out there? And I always look at all of my work in that manner, whether it be chins, side profile, you know, drinks spilt on top. You know, at the moment, I'm spending a lot of time editing because it's quite easy now with AI just to take off drink splashes on people's tops, and I do that because sometimes when they're wearing a black top, they don't realise when the flash goes off, you can see that someone's knocked half a pint down them. So I'm there taking that out because why would you want that picture with drink spilt on your top again out there in that domain?
Which is why people employ Twiggles, because you've maintained...
Right.
No, well, you've maintained that level and standard of excellence throughout your work. But going forward, obviously I was mentioning the issues of colorism and the lack of women and just black women just generally. Is it something that has been brought to your attention? Is it something that you sort of think, oh, maybe I'd like to take part in a movement to help realign and readdress that going forward? Or are you just happy going along as you are? Not that I'm not pressurising you, I'm just asking you, do those things matter to you?
There is a UK black female photographers group, and they do support me by reposting my stories, and we follow each other. I haven't managed to make it to any of their events yet because a lot of them are when I'm working. I think they're doing like a night walk soon that I got an email invite to, but again, it's at a weekend. I think it's a lot of it's for people that are part-time perhaps and want to explore it, so it tends to be what I would call sociable hours, but they are my unsociable hours because that's when I'm working. So I haven't managed to partake in any of it. But I think there is a movement. I think it's getting bigger, and obviously there's lots of college courses available. There's lots of, cameras now. I don't know how everyone's affording so many cameras, but cameras aren't cheap. But people are finding something and getting to know it and taking it everywhere with them, as I did as well in my 20s. I'd take my camera everywhere with me. For a good 8 years, I never left the house without it. So it's just something that you have to be passionate about and just keep plugging away. And the quality of your work, just as the quality of your sound system, is, for me, more important than whether you're female or black. I think if the people are dancing, if the people are looking good in the pictures and the photos are great, that's the most important thing. And that's the thing that will continue as a legacy, is the quality.
Yes, exactly.
Same as with your DJing and the music.
Yeah.
It's all about the quality. That's why you've been so successful for all of these years and fermented in a foundation in this business is because you play good music.
Yeah. Well, I like to think so, but also the passion and the drive of when somebody tells me no, I can't do it, or because I'm a woman, sometimes I sort of like Lady Banton, instead of arguing with people, I'm just going to show you, because you're not going to tell me no, because I feel that I should be in the space as well. Going forward, are there any other ways that we can try to realign, readdress, reclaim the narrative that can make others, just the general public at large, more aware, or invite them to be included to help, change the landscape, as it were?
I think I pick and choose what I do now.
Right.
So I'm not one of the DJ slaves.
Could you elaborate? What does that mean?
Well, I don't feel like everyone, are you playing, like people have said to me, are you playing at Christmas? No, thank you. It doesn't bother me if I am not booked for Christmas. It's not the be-all and end-all. What's more important for me is to have my sound system playing. There are so many club sets now, you go there, and the equipment is not what I would like to see. Excuse me. It's not that I would like to see. I'd like to be playing on, because I see my set as an instrument. So if I can get it into a space, that's what I'd like to, to project.
Is that less
audience.
of a challenge for securing bookings when you're not at festivals or somebody's booked you for a club night? Is that is it as easy as you think? Like we hear of Channel One, Just Shaka, all these famous sound systems, but generally men can just walk through the door and get in where they like. Is it always like that for you now?
Well, when I'm looking to do a date, if it's a festival, I even try and get the set into the festival. I'll try anything to get them to look at what, because we're playing on PA sets. It's a gig for a PA company, and a lot of their equipment is not that great. In fact, it's a horror show. So I'm upset, and I challenge behind the scenes, because I just think, you've got me here, you've got us all here to play on that, and then, you know, you have to deal with the repercussions of that. But I would prefer to have a scenario where I'm taking the set along with me. I have control over the volume, because they think, it's because they see the amount of boxes, they think, oh my God, they're going to tear down the place. But actually, we control the volume, and it's a lot better quality.
Don't you think we need to educate them then? Because they're just making assumptions like you don't know what you're doing. You're going to tear down the volume with the place.
I think with sound systems, they think we're all just unruly people that want to play bass and tear down the wood.
We do, don't we?
Not with their equipment, but with our equipment, we do try. We do try to. But it's just about the whole profile and the brand that I'm trying to portray. I want to play on my own instrument. You know what it's about.
And maintaining that standard of excellence.
Yeah.
And, so it's constantly pushing against that, isn't it? Or just having a conversation.
And education as well, because as I said, younger people don't necessarily get the chance to play on a set. So it's to encourage them to come and play on the set, as we did when we were younger.
So do you do workshops, teach them how to DJ or any? Has that come up yet for you?
I have.
Or is it kind of on the day, you throw them in there, a few tips to direct them?
Well, I brought in the youngest DJ that's ever played at Carnival. That was a female. She was 13 when she came. So that was a couple of years ago. She's now 16. So she played at 13 years on. The opportunity to play with on a sound system is totally different.
In front of a few thousand people.
She did very well.
Wow.
Did really well. And that was out of the lockdown. So this year it was totally young women on the Monday, because I was knackered. On the Sunday I was knackered.
Well, your mother, Lady Banton, aren't you? So.
Oh yeah. I don't want that title though.
No, I'm not suggesting that you receive it. Don't accept it at all. But I'm just saying you're all right, auntie. I get called auntie sometimes.
I know.
And sometimes I am offended, especially when some guys come up to me. I'm like, can you not call me auntie, please? Thank you. I'm still a Paul. All right.
So yeah, it's kind of for me. It's kind of like getting them to understand the workings of how a sound system can sound. You can manipulate the sound how you want it. So it's like education, and it's also very much about the pleasure of playing.
Of course, but you are important. You are key to this thing, because there are very few in the United Kingdom women sound systems anyway. So you have got to become educators along the way.
We did.
Even though you hadn't anticipated that, You've had to become that, haven't you? Because passing on the baton to future generations, so keeping up that legacy, it's important, no?
Yeah, it is. But the top, there's a lot of DJ workshops. So I did, I don't really focus on that bit, because there's quite a lot of people that have opportunities to do that bit. It's behind the scenes. So I took a workshop to Manchester. We did a Women in Sound System, quite well attended. And to be able to invite all of the females, it was intergenerational as well. So there is an interest in it. It's just to now get that out there and take that up and down the country. But I think it's interesting when you take women round the back, because we were never allowed to, touch a mixing desk and understand why there are so many amps there, why the processors are there. So they found it a really interesting day.
And how were the guys, your male peers? Did they come along? Were they supportive, or were they coming looking down on you, or what?
It was an all-female workshop.
Oh, no men in the building.
They were in the building. They were trying to trundle in there.
Yeah, I bet they were.
Yeah, it was bizarre, because they were from the caretaker to one of the women's sons. Oh, can't we come in? And
I think hopefully they're interested and fascinated,
they
because
are
they
interested.
don't come across women like you at all.
Well, it was
probably.
It wasn't only that they'd never had a workshop.
Okay.
They'd never had an opportunity to hear the workings of a sound system. Everyone sees it, and then the owner, it's literally like his own territory, and he guards it like, And this is what some of the guys were saying, that we've never had the chance to go behind and have it explained to us. Why is there so much equipment there?
And what does each piece do, the functionality of each piece?
Yeah, the functionality and what you can do. Why do you make it custom made? Because each sound system is unique to the person that builds it. Right. So we had a really, I think it was a really positive day for all of those generations to be able to. So there were producers, there were songwriters. So it wasn't only DJs. It was just kind of like a woman, a couple of mature women that had, they were curious.
That's good. That's good. I think that's something really good, because reclaiming the narrative there in your situation is showing that women are capable. Black women are capable as well, much less, but just women, just generally. So I think it's really good that you continue to do that, because it breaks down the stereotypes, doesn't it? Yeah. It breaks down the walls. And in your field of photography, as beautiful as you always look, people are coming or commissioning you for the work. So might you go into teaching when you get older, or what does the future hold within your field to the world out there?
Well, I'm hoping to retire abroad, so they'll have to book a ticket to come and see me.
Oh, excuse me, okay.
Not that, well, I was just thinking, it's too cold here, isn't it? We're freezing tonight. Anyway, no, I don't know yet. I'm still working that out. I will see. But this is the second talk I've done. I did one last year, a Q&A with my friend Johnny, and that was well attended last year as well. So I feel like maybe just doing Q&As and just talking a bit, then people can get some snippets of knowledge that way. But that's it for now.
And with your exhibitions, do you find many other people putting on work like that, your artwork pieces? You've done two?
I've done two.
Right. But have you come across any other women that sort of do this work, really?
Not independent photography exhibitions. I'm sure there are out there. I just don't know anyone directly.
And how well were they received?
Oh, I don't know.
No, you already did too.
Mine.
Yeah,
Sorry. Hello.
You are here in the building, aren't you? Yeah? I'm only joking.
My exhibitions went really well, because basically, obviously working in parties and nightlife, the first one was just one night of like a party, which was well attended, and I always get a drink sponsoring and stuff like that. Right. And then the one I did last year was a whole week, and I roped in singers, DJs. There was some spoken word. I mean, every evening there was something going on, to the point where I didn't realise the gallery owner lived upstairs, and she was like, "Oh, you're not doing something again tonight, are you?" And I was like, "Yes." I said, "Don't worry, it's the last night. Then we're doing an after party down the road, don't worry." So I had events on every night, and just made it more of a platform for other people as well, you know, because it's all about cross-promotion these days. I mean, I can't draw people all on my own again and again and again. I have to share that space. You know, it's a new venue for people. I went on Fat Llama, which is a rental website, went and got decks in. Someone lent me speakers, cable missing, I had to get a cable from somewhere else. Arranged all that and just gave people an opportunity to share the space with me. And then that way they get new followers, I get new followers, new interests. So I think all of this is about community in one way or another. And it crosses many divides. And even this year I went on my first sound system. I was
What are you using?
Oh, I can't remember the name of it now, but I got invited and I was up by the decks, you know, hey, look at me, I'm on a sound system. But I loved it. I couldn't feel my own heartbeat, but I loved it.
Oh my gosh, how did the photos turn out?
I didn't take any pictures, I was just there for fun.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was just there for fun, but I really enjoyed it. It was great. It's amazing what you do, because I don't realise that you're climbing onto a stack of speakers in essence, aren't you? Or the bits and bobs of it all. So it's interesting to hear you speak.
Yeah, it's a lot of equipment. A lot
of manpower needed. I think we should take the time to see if any questions from the floor, from anybody before we wrap things up and have a little boogie or
glass
anything.
of wine.
You've got no questions from the floor? Okay. Anybody got any questions from the floor? You'll look good on camera when the camera's on you.
Yeah, so it's really interesting to hear you talk about it. Obviously, I've known Twigs all her stories for some years now.
He's bored of me.
And it's interesting to hear your challenges. Other than the festivals, where would you typically find your system, and what is it called?
My sound system name is Seduction City.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so I play anywhere that I can play. So I'm going to be playing in this area. It's quite difficult, it's quite challenging to be able to find spaces, especially with the whole thing around licensing. Clubs now have to have their own inbuilt systems because they control, the whole licensing process is managed by the local councils. So before you'd be able to bring a set into like a setting like this and have that, but now they have to have their own set, their own set in the building.
So you would also do installs in venues?
So I try to find venues where it's just a space, and then I bring it in. But that's quite challenging to find spaces like that. A lot of venues, they want you to use their house system. We don't want to do that. So I tend to, I'm one of the very few sound systems that I've played outside, more events outside than I have inside. So if you said, have you played in this club? I'll tell you no. But if I've played in that field or that street, that's where my sound system ends up, because that's the only place that I can play it quite freely. Yeah, so I've played, as I said, I was saying to one of my friends, do you know what? I haven't played in many clubs in all the years, really, because of the sound system. I've always played in some kind of like some house somewhere because it was empty. So you just roll the sound system into the house, which is the culture that we came from, isn't it?
You understand the rules of legislation and things like that. Aren't you part of the Notting Hill Carnival Committee where you have to speak to all the sound systems that come in now every year and guide them and give them up-to-date legislation info on what they can and can't do now?
So,
aren't you on the body or the team?
So I was the secretary for the British Association of Sound Systems. So I was responsible for the licensing process for the 38 sound systems that operated at Carnival. So we're quite heavily regulated, risk assessments, noise levels, licensing. Some have licenses like spaces like this. Some have a temporary event notice. So all of that stuff I did for a number of years. So I kind of have a long history of navigating and working with local councils, environmental health, because some of us do get excited and our sound systems are too loud, and the police as well, and playing music and having a music policy that won't instigate unwanted behaviour. So yeah.
Want to throw a rave somewhere, we'll bung you a few quid and you'll get it past the bureaucracy.
Do you know what? I think sometimes...
Can't believe I heard him say that.
Do you know what? Sometimes...
Bribery.
Do you know what? I think
Edit that
sometimes...
out promptly.
I think the fact that I have been a woman has kind of like made it slightly easier. No, seriously, because like I do an event up in an area where I live, and a couple of the guys said, how did you get that? And I said, I don't know, but because I hadn't really thought about it, I just went in with my kind of like my carnival head, because I know the system.
No fake eyelashes then.
No, there wasn't any of that. I just wanted the space, and I was determined that I was going to get that space. So I just went in and said, oh, this is what I wanted to do. And the first year, they really roughed me up. I was quite traumatized.
Wow.
It really roughed me up, because I thought, you're not going to play any grime, are you? And I thought, I don't even like grime. But after we got over that, they kind of like just, I'll just bung the license in and everything will be fine. So there are times, you'll go into a venue and I say, all right then. Because then I say...
as non-threatening.
Stunning wit and charm, that's what I call it.
Right.
Do you know what? I think it is maybe a bit about having the language, the right language that they want to hear. I also have quite a comfortable music policy, so it appears to be non-threatening, but once you get on and, but I've been quite fortunate that I've been able to get some large, like a drinks labelling or... Yes. So that kind of like, so to be able to get sponsors, I think that's the one challenge that if you're talking about, because it is expensive. It's expensive to insure, it's expensive to maintain, because I blew 2 bass speakers during Carnival, so they have to be replaced. And you're still building more on top of it, so that you can get the right sound that you want. So it's just like, the guys spend a lot more money than me though, because they're just, it's ridiculous. They're worse. Guys spend money on what they want to spend it on.
They're just frivolous with it all.
Yeah, they are.
I've got a question. How on earth do you build a massive speaker? I've got no idea. Like, you don't just go on Amazon, do you, and go, next day delivery. So can you... In a nutshell, explain how you build something that could be as tall as this, this seat, this area that we're in.
Well, I don't build them myself personally. There's guys that have been around in the industry for a very long time. They have their own reputation. So speaker builders, I work with them and I tell them, this is what I want. This is the type of design that I want. At the moment, I'm building subs at the moment, so it's that deep bass, because that's, it's one particular aspect of the sound that I'm kind of like lacking on. I haven't got enough subs, that's that deep bass, and I haven't got enough tops, where all your voices are. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. I've got enough mids, I've got enough kick bass, I've got enough I've got another range of speakers. I've got some free range speakers as well. But that is where I'm lacking. So we're working with them, and then the actual type of speakers. So I bought some cheapo ones in the summer, and they're just not good enough. So when I compare them to what's in my kick bass, which is, if you go onto my Instagram, you'll see them just above the tall speakers. They're nowhere near the quality. And this is what because you have long conversations with the guys about, oh, well, it didn't sound like this. And
are you searching for the holy grail of sound, even with your sound system building, trying to get the spec exactly right?
I'm nearly there. And that's, like when you analyze the whole thing, because you spend the time analyzing after you finish
You're as
Carnival.
geeky as the guys.
No.
No?
They get boring.
Okay.
They get really boring. But you analyze it and you just think, and then you've got the videos as well, and you've got your headphones on and you're listening. And then I was just thinking, So you're talking, you're analysing what you've done, how it sounded. You're standing there listening. You're walking towards it. And you're just thinking, And then you'll reflect later on and you'll think, and then you'll speak to the speaker makers, and then they'll say, yes, I remember what you're talking about. This is what we can do to get that. So, yeah, I hope I've answered your question. Yeah.
So having said all that, I just wanted to ask, is there a drop-off rate for the number of women that want to come into sound system culture? Because you're dedicated, you're 100% in it. But I've heard people say before, women can't DJ and they don't know anything about the studio
yes,
the
they
engineer. There are not many of us because our attention span or whatever.
No, that's not true. Our only challenge, and I say our only challenge, is to actually get the sound system to its destination, because it weighs a ton.
So there is that interest from the women. They want to do with that. That's like
they'll go anywhere.
as well. Not just look good behind the turntables, behind the decks.
We're not interested in looking good. We do aesthetically, because there's social media. You need to look. Like you've got to put the foundation on.
You fix up and look sharp, yeah?
Yeah, so it's really good that other people within the community are there now, because if there's going to be a photographer there, you're looking out for the makeup artist.
Twiggles is good at that. She's good at
it's
telling you colours to wear and things like that.
It's
to
really
make you
important.
Look your best.
I think it's working with the younger generation. It's been really useful because getting prepared for Glastonbury, it was literally like a mission. We went and got our hair done. Didn't do the lashes because I can't see. So, but, we got our makeup, we put on our makeup properly. We got, you go and get your nails done. So those things go towards the brand, don't they?
It's a lot, but most times the guys don't have to bother with all of this.
Yeah, but
why is there this pressure for women to have to look a certain way all the time?
Yeah, but those are the sound systems of old.
Okay.
And I just think to myself, you need to get dressed, mate.
Okay, yeah.
So I say to them, you need to get dressed. You need to look sharp, or even just have, the T-shirt, just to look kind of like professional, like some old dodgy, dirty trousers. Yeah. You need to be able to do that, though, because that's what the public demand.
Very insightful. I don't think you need to add anything more to that, otherwise we'll be in a masterclass for the next hour. If anyone's got any more questions, if not, I think we'll wrap it up, and I want to give a big round of applause to Lady Banton from Seduction City Sound, and the vivacious Twiggles for her photography insight and what the world of what she does, how it goes about. Well, I just want to say thank you to the Grow management, Declan, Jordana and the team for hosting this night, and we hope that you've picked up some bits that you might think, well, you know what, going forward, I think I can rethink about how maybe I approach someone or deal with a situation with friends, family, work colleagues, whoever, because ideally we all want to come together. It's like the guy from Notting Hill Carnival said, it's about freedom and unity. The guy who heads up Matthew. We want more freedom, we want more unity for all of us to come together, whatever different subcultures we're from or whatever fields that we work in. And I think that will hopefully evolve to help redressing and balancing the narrative. So thank you for being here this evening and taking part. Thank you to the sound man and the cameraman, and big up. And thank you for being here tonight at Grow in conversation. Thank you.